latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. And remember a couple years ago, we brought you this story of rage rituals. These were retreats of basically suburban women, where there was a facilitator to help them get their rage out. They would go into, or they do, present tense, go into a forest and start screaming, take perhaps branches on the ground and start beating them against trees or the ground, get all their anger out. Mia Magic is the genius behind the rage rituals.
It's raging time. Rage has been demonized and villainized, especially in the feminine. But our sacred rage is what has incited so many movements, created so much change on our planet. It is imperative that we allow ourselves safe spaces to release this fiery, hot emotion from within us so that it can no longer poison or toxify our internal emotional reality. Even though a volcano can be destructive in its eruption, ultimately that is also what creates paradise. We have to give ourselves permission to fully emote, to release that which has remained stuck and suppressed inside of ourselves in order to be free.
Hi, I'm Mia Magic. Something I have become very notorious for and that my retreats are highly coveted in order to experience is rage rituals.
Are we ready for some rage?
Oh, we're ready. If you're gonna work with me, you know you're getting yourself into some pretty wild. You're gonna need big sticks.
Most women have been shamed for their anger. It's been something that they have been punished for or never allowed to show.
This is all about creating a safe space for people to truly experience the emotion that has been so shamed and so suppressed within us. Whether we have been verbally, physically, or sexually abused, so many women have never had the opportunity to stand up to those who have perpetrated violence or any kind of disrespect against themselves. And this is a place where we get to go full out without any holds barred, without any limitation, without any feeling of restriction.
Starting in, feeling into what makes me angry, who has made me angry, who has hurt me, who has broken me, who has cut me down. Guess what? You're still here. Right now I feel angry. Right now I feel frustrated. Everything, whatever you're feeling, let it out. Express yourself. Let yourself feel. Be heard. Start shaking and moving.
If I had a nickel for every time my name came up in a rage ritual. Well, like all great ideas, it's spawning copycats. There's a new weekly event called Scream Club Chicago, created by Manny Hernandez, who recently moved to the city from L.A. Hernandez is a breathwork practitioner and men's transformational coach. And his idea for a Sunday night scream session on the lake came from his own experience with breathwork and the emotional release he has witnessed with clients. Quoting Manny, in my breathwork practice, we started doing screaming during the breathwork, and that's where a lot of people had their transformative experiences from that. So that's always kind of been a thing in my life, and it's helped me a lot. If I do it alone, I might scare some of my neighbors. If I do it with a group of people, then I scare all of my neighbors. I presume. I don't know. Is this a thing? I mean, do I have to ask? I'm a bit embarrassed to ask, but no, I want a professional opinion. And fortunately, we have a psychiatrist in the house. He is Theodore Dalrymple, contributing editor to City Journal, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and author of many books, including Buried But Not Quite Dead, Forgotten Writers of Peter Lachaise. Theodore Dalrymple, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
So the the rage rituals or these scream clubs in major cities that apparently are starting to populate? I mean, is that a real way to get to a better state of mind?
Not in my opinion. No, we've been here before. Actually, this is not the first time people have suggested that screaming will help you. I think the problem is that most people, or many people, think of emotions rather as they think of pus. And if you don't let pus out, it accumulates, and then you get kind of septicemia. And if you don't express your emotions, you get kind of emotional septicemia. And I mean, the most absurd thing that I ever heard was, or one of the most absurd things I ever heard was a murderer who just said to me, "I had to kill a doctor, or I don't know what I would have done." So,
right. How about not kill her? Yeah, that was one other option, right? So that's the whole thing, right? Is it's like this full emotive release as opposed to a little bit of restraint and maturation. There's always that option.
Yeah. I felt much better after I killed her. But anyway, my observation is that the more you express your rage, the more you feel it. And I mean, there are limits, of course. But generally speaking, the more you express that emotion, the more of it there is to express. And one must never forget that anger and righteous indignation are actually quite pleasurable emotions. So I don't know whether you've ever had this experience. Maybe I'm extrapolating from my own experience too much. But sometimes when I've been angry, I've continued the anger even after the real cause of the anger has dissipated, and I find that I'm actually rather enjoying myself.
Yes, I think that we have a term for that here, like sort of spiking the football. You're overdoing it. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah. No, but it's it's funny too to talk about. It's the whole you can't let that can't be bottled up. You can't let that fester. But in point of fact, actually you can, because in an age of sentimentality, what we don't need is more people leading with the sort of full emotive expression on just about anything.
Yes. As I say to people sometimes, thank you for not expressing yourself. And,
yeah, perfect. Yes.
So I find, the idea of people gathering around to express their rage in general, because presumably they're all raging about something different, is ridiculous. And then you will set up a kind of arms race. Whoever expresses his rage the most violently, the most noisily, will be felt to have the most to be angry about.
Well, that's to me is the fun.
It promotes.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Insincerity and dishonesty. Insincerity and dishonesty, in my view.
Well, right. I mean, not to belabor the point, but it's just so entertaining. The idea, I got to go to my Scream Club Chicago meeting. We're going to go out to the lake and generate rage. I feel perfectly fine, but I'm going to go scream at at Lake Michigan for no particular reason, but because my breathwork practitioner says I should.
Yes. Well, it's not that there's nothing to be angry about, of course, but there's always going to be things to be angry about. And you will find that expressing your anger, especially when in fact you're impotent to do anything about it, will only make yourself worse.
Mm. I wanted to just get your take on something else from a public policy perspective, just because of the about face that we've seen from Keir Starmer in the UK, which is rather surprising given his political disposition. That is a move away from open borders and multiculturalism in the UK, a move that's being led by the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, right now. Because the opposite thing is happening in many quarters here, including remarkably from Karen Bass, who's the mayor of L.A., fresh off her management of the wildfires there. She is responding to ICE raids in the LA area, removing people in this country illegally, many of whom have violent criminal pasts. She's responding to that this way.
Because, you have people who don't want to leave their homes, who are not going to work, and they are in need of cash. It's a couple $100. I don't know the exact amount, and this should be available in about a week.
So she is going to provide cash, a couple $100, as she says, cash cards to people in this country illegally because they're afraid to come out of their homes to go to work, allegedly. I mean, is this sort of similar to the experience of Western Europe when they went full tilt before at least Keir Starmer is starting to rethink this based on public pressure?
Well, the first thing to say about Keir Starmer, he's like the white man in Westerns. He speaks with forked tongue. So I think that we shall have to see what he actually does.
Fair enough.
But in his case, because of course they're all capable of saying what is perfectly obvious to most people should be done without actually doing it, because we live in a kind of logocracy where words count more than deeds. But the numbers of people deported, say, from England or from France, are absolutely tiny by comparison with the number of people arriving. And one of the first things to do, of course, is to, as Confucius would say, would be to get the names right. So, for example, we have asylum seekers who are actually quite clearly just illegal immigrants. Their arrival in the country, the first thing they do in the country is commit a crime because they're not actually allowed entry. And then they claim so-called asylum, having passed through several countries where it would be perfectly safe for them to stay. So that's one thing. It's very important to get the language right, because if you don't get the language right, you can't think properly. But I don't think anybody in Britain or France is terrified of being removed from the country, because I know people don't. Their fear is not proportional to the statistical risks, but the statistical risks of being deported from Britain or France are probably about as great as being killed in an airline flight. So even when you're found, you're practically never deported.
Well, so I mean, that's interesting, and it's a fair point. Talking about the disconnect between a politician's rhetoric and the actions taken, but even the rhetoric, does it signal? Forget the politicians for a second. Does it signal an awakening or a mind shift in the general public in the UK or France when it comes to open borders policies? I mean, that you need that cultural shift first. Yeah.
I don't think there's a cultural shift. I think it's just the politicians are catching up with the population, which has long felt the same thing.
Okay.
And having just said that anger is a very bad thing, what they fear is actually the anger or the mounting anger of the population. For example, I went yesterday from the airport in Paris to the center of Paris, and on the way there were tents for illegal migrants, and my taxi driver, who himself was the son of Algerian migrants who almost certainly entered the country legally, actually, years ago, was absolutely horrified. So by this, he thought, well, why can't they do something about it? And this is the feeling. We pay enormous quantities of tax. In France, 50% of wages or earnings go in tax, and yet we have tents in the center of Paris.
Right.
So there's a mounting feeling of anger about this, the incompetence and stupidity of the administration.
And well, that's my point. I mean, it's the old saying that politicians always enter at the back of the parade, not the front of the parade. After the crowd has formed, then they'll get in line, to follow the leader. But it signals something going on in Western Europe. And since you were maybe a generation ahead of us in terrible open borders policies that we're now retrenching, that maybe a retrenchment is in the offing in Western Europe as well.
Well, yes. I mean, now there are border checks between several European countries that signed the Schengen Agreement, in which was to have open borders between European countries. But now there are going to be passport checks and so on, because each country is so afraid of illegal migrants coming into their neck of the woods. Yes, it's having an effect. Of course, it's very late. I was learning yesterday that 43% of children in schools under the age of 15 in Vienna are from the children of Muslim immigrants. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 43%. So it's a bit late in the day to be doing something about it, but I suppose better late than never. However, when I say doing something about it, we have yet to see what is actually going to be done.
Theodore Dalrymple is contributing editor to City Journal, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and author of many great books, including Buried But Not Quite Dead, Forgotten Writers of Peter Lachaise. Theodore Dalrymple, thank you as always for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
They took everything. Our equipment, our supplies. It's all